Welcome back to the Matter of Facts podcast on the Prepper Broadcast Network. I am doing my absolute level best to be a tiny bit more professional than usual, and that will be immediately screwed up by my lack of sleep, lack of caffeine, or Nick. One of those three things will derail me.
Look, I have to do my best to keep the patrons happy, and some of them like when I derail you. So there you go.
Some.
Most of them do.
Most. Just the ones that voice their opinion. The rest of them, I'm pretty sure they go along with it too.
I occasionally give in to peer pressure, but only when it's funny.
I was about to say peer pressure. Throw the air quotes up, bud.
I think our patrons are mostly our peers.
I guess what I'm saying is you don't need to be pressured to derail me for your own amusement.
That is also correct, yes.
I know. Anyway, if you'd like to promote bad decisions by becoming a patron, that links in the show description. You can become a patron. You can put Nick up to derailing me for his amusement, your amusement, and the general internet's amusement. Mm-hmm. If you'd rather buy merch from the Southern Gals, that link is also in the show description. There's shirts, there's koozies, and possibly more fuckery in the near future. And if you'd rather prevent war crimes with Disaster Coffee, use code MOF so we can tell that I instructed you to go buy coffee. Mm-hmm. Because remember, the monthly subscription service has been turned off. So now you must be reminded on a regular basis to go buy coffee.
I need to buy coffee on Sunday.
Although I will say this much, if you're a habitual user, then I won't have to be the one that reminds you. Your coworkers, your spouse, your priest, your local police officer, someone's going to remind you need to be caffeinated. Who just depends on how much of a fool you were behaving like.
True. Or what day of the week it is when you run out.
Yeah.
We had a guy at work one time, didn't let us know that we were out of like caffeinated coffee. So the fucker started mixing in decaf, like cutting in decaf with the caffeinated coffee, because he said coffee's coffee, it's fine.
And y'all
we had migraines for like a week and a half until somebody realized what he was doing. We were having all of the like furnaces inspected for carbon monoxide. Turned out one of them was leaking carbon monoxide. So some of the headaches might have been related to that, but
most of them were probably withdrawals.
Yeah, definitely caffeine withdrawals.
And I'm assuming somebody like beat his ass in the parking lot or something, right? Because that's justified.
He was given motivational coolant tank cleaning duties.
Motivational coolant tank cleaning.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. So you got to crawl in between this cast iron casting and this
party levels of re-education.
Yeah. You've got like 8 to 14 inches of clearance depending on the machine, and most coolants that we use nowadays are what's called a water soluble oil. Yes, it occurs. I don't understand the chemistry behind it. It's witchcraft. But what it does do is biodegrade over time and turns into this weird amorphous sludge that grows all manner of terrible smelling bacteria. So you have to empty them out now and then.
Very unpleasant, I take it.
Wildly unpleasant.
Good. He deserves
a tight space. He did deserve it. I mean, normally that's an apprentice job because the apprentices tend to be a little smaller of gut and they fit in the space better. He's a large man.
Then perhaps he should learn not to mess with people's coffee.
He hasn't since.
Learning does occur sometimes, it seems.
Learning has occurred.
All right, taking a quick look through the chat before we get to talking. I see the proud Texan complaining about why hasn't the show started a full 17 minutes before we went live. Because, he's usually the one that's a half an hour late and then telling us to start over. So there's that. I see a Raggle Fraggle.
Raggle, the chemical you flush it out with is water because it's water soluble. So basically what you do is you siphon out all the old stuff and then hose it down and continue siphoning it out until it's cleaned out.
Sounds gross. Dr. Scary Guy is also with us. And I see your wife.
My wife is here. Hooray.
The coolant smells horrible. Does the coolant smell worse than used heavy gear oil?
Can used heavy gear oil smell like a rotting corpse?
That's right. You didn't spend time working in mechanic shops.
No, strictly machinist shops. Well, and for a bricklayer and a farmer and a couple other things.
So have you ever changed the gear oil out of your rear end of your truck?
Nope. I pay a man with a fancy lift to do that.
Okay. That stuff is some of the worst smelling crap to come out of any automotive vehicle ever, anywhere, period, end discussion. It's god awful smelling.
Interesting.
You can put it in, drive around the block and dump it out. And it already smells like it's friggin' like burnt ass.
Huh.
Makes no sense to me. Like it smells like oil when it comes out of the bottle. Put it in the rear end and take it out immediately. Smells like death. Weirdest thing on earth. I'm pretty sure it goes into the pocket dimension.
Well, okay. Are most of those rear ends cast iron gears?
Not if you want them to last for any amount of time. I mean, the rear ends are cast iron. The rear ends are cast.
That might be it, because cast iron does this weird thing where when it's exposed to certain chemicals, it puts off a really nasty smell. Certain coolants, certain oils.
Stuart agrees with me. Gear oil is the worst.
It might be.
I mean, okay, and I see a Gil Rab here too, who's catching flack for threatening to feed everybody bugs. But that's a story for another
She
time.
just promised to bring bug included cookies, and I thought I'd try that.
Y'all, you try it. Let me know how it works for you. I've already tried them and didn't care for them much.
You know, I'm willing to try most foods, and I do mean most. I'm willing to try most foods at least twice, because the first time you try it, if you're expecting something that it's not, you're not going to necessarily appreciate it for what it is.
Did you try any of the Boudin this past summer?
Oh, hell yeah, I did. I ate 2 full sticks of that stuff. That was amazing.
Wasn't too spicy for you, huh?
I would have doubled the seasoning in it, given my like of spicy food, but then my wife wouldn't be able to be in the same room as it. I thought it was a good amount of spice for general audiences.
Yeah, Raggle provided that for us to bring up, and
really good.
Gil Rab saying it's happening. I may start sending little packages to all the patrons.
I mean, I'm not going to fight free cookies.
Let me know. All right, mini topic head of the big topic. Is SCOTUS going to nuke the assault weapon bans finally?
I have opinions about this.
Before we give our opinions, for anybody that's been living under a rock, the Supreme Court has apparently decided that now is the time to choose violence, and they want to hear a challenge to definitely Chicago's assault weapons ban, but there was a state-level ban. Cook County's assault weapons ban. And the state of Connecticut. They're hearing them both. I think they've been combined.
Doc, I was not the Illinois plaintiff. I tried to get on to the FPC's lawsuit as the Illinois plaintiff because as a model citizen that's only ever been pulled over a dozen times for speeding.
And for the time that you tried to intrastate like smuggle a pallet of ammo.
It wasn't intrastate. It wasn't even it was across county lines, but only by like 10 miles.
Technicalities.
Look. I would have been an excellent, aside from the social media, the podcast and all that, I would have been an excellent example for the lawsuit.
I'm sure you would have been.
I wasn't arrested.
Yeah.
And they were looking for people that were arrested under the Illinois assault weapons ban. So they could show damages.
It always makes me wonder when, like, you have to commit a freaking felony in order to have standing to insinuate that the state has usurped your rights. When it seems to me like
me being stripped of my private possessions is not usurpation of my rights enough, apparently.
I tend to think it falls into that whole right delayed is a right denied thing. And the simple fact that they have like preemptively denied that I have the right to do something is in and of itself damaging. But who am I?
FPC's concern, and I did speak with a couple of their people and one of their lawyers about it because I'm fairly active in my local area as far as politics goes. Well, it's the only place my voice will actually make a difference is when I can, let's say, call all of my county board members on their personal home phone numbers and leave them very long and detailed messages about what I'm upset about, because that is the level of communication access you have with local representatives. FPC said that because they allow a registration, the state allows a registration, they're concerned that without someone being imprisoned or charged, that SCOTUS would say, well, it's no different than the FOID card, and be less likely to take the case seriously. So the more damage that they have, that they can show for an individual, the more likely the case is to progress through the courts and actually be heard.
Hmm.
Yeah. Even though the arguments would be exactly the same.
It would be, but you know.
Yeah.
All right, let me punt Stuart in here first because he left his opinion in chat, and then you and
Sure.
I can. So, Proud Texan 365 saying, sorta, there will be mass shootings in the month before oral arguments, and in response, Roberts and Barrett may flip or water down the ruling.
Very possible. Look,
you and I were saying right before we went live that based on patterns in history, you have an opinion. So
I do. My opinion is, given the Supreme Court's ruling in Bruin and how they applied the constitutionality of various other laws, in that there has to be a like kind rule from, what was it, 1791, when the Second Amendment was ratified.
Yep.
Now, the only laws that I know of, I'm not a constitutional historian. I'm just a bit of a amateur reader of history. The only laws I know of that regulated who could possess what weapons was slave laws.
Not a great thing to hang your argument on.
Not really great, although the state of Illinois has been hanging their argument on slavery codes.
I think Hawaii tried to as well recently.
They did, because apparently slavery is great as long as it's stripping people of their rights.
Yeah.
Slavery was always wrong. It was always a bad idea, and it's a good thing it's gone.
But nothing says equality like treating all of your citizens like third rate, like they don't have rights.
Exactly. Now, the other one is some of the Native Americans' weapons trading codes. Now, that's also a racially based or largely racially based system of weapons control. There was a couple in a few jurisdictions that had to do with indentured servants and their right to own various things. But it was mostly down to property. It was mostly a property restriction and not so much a weapons restriction.
So kind of something to the tune of like, you can't bring firearms on other people's property without their permission or something?
No, more like you were not allowed to own property unless it was given to you by the holder of your contract.
Interesting.
Like all proceeds of your labor are deliverable to the owner of your contract. So it was just slavery by another name, and mostly Irishmen.
Yeah. And to answer Raggle Fraggle, yes, we are all tax slaves. Don't believe me?
Yes.
Stop paying your taxes, see what happens.
Mm-hmm. Now, given the Bruin test and given the other recent rulings that have come out, such as them striking down Hawaii's vampire rule, if we want to call it that, because that seems to be the common parlance, it looks to me like they will at the very least say, no, you cannot ban specific rifles for features and functions. Now, and I think they'll say that this is a federal level issue. The states cannot do X, Y, or Z to defend the NFA. Essentially, I see SCOTUS saying, no, local jurisdictions cannot do this. It is above local level politics, including state level politics. This is a federal congressional issue. And that is how they will defend the NFA, while at the same time saying, sorry, no, common use and no law precedent dating back to 1791, other than slave codes, which I think a lot of them will have a hard time agreeing apply to modern citizens, given that we've gotten rid of slavery except for people in prison.
Mm-hmm. So that's your vote. Like, this is going to swing our way, mostly finally.
I think what's probably in the top two most likely things is, one, they say, no, bad dog, Bruin test, go back and do it again. Okay. Or two, they say, nope, we told you already to go back and look at it via the Bruin test. You did not. bad, it goes away. I think those are one of the two things we get. I think we get a narrow enough ruling that they can defend the NFA, because I don't think these justices are, while I do think a lot of them are more constitutionally leaning than prior administrations' Supreme Court justices, I don't see them being hurrah to A enough to say machine guns and RPGs for everyone.
And see, I agree with you, except
Go
you
for
and
it.
I've talked about how incredibly, some would say unfairly, but very, very critical I've been of the Supreme Court over the
Yeah.
last 20 years.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
So, and every time we have this discussion around Stewart, he's quick to remind me, like, the Supreme Court has to rule on the case as it was presented, narrow ruling,
And
yada yada yada.
to be fair, a lot of the cases that have been brought up have been building in this direction.
That's fair. But here's my issue. My issue is that a narrow ruling on a narrowly held point that relates to a constitutionally protected activity does not seem sufficient, nor rational, nor fair.
No,
This
but
is
it's
not an issue of a person liking to wear pink socks on a Tuesday. This is not an issue of a minor. This is not a minor issue. This
no,
is
it's
something
an
that is
issue on the same grounds as voting rights
no,
or citizenship.
no. I think it's more important than voting rights and citizenship.
Okay.
Because it gets to the very heart of the rights that were enumerated by our founders, that were enshrined in the Constitution, that were promised to us as a result of the conflict we had just finished having with the king and with the king's men. The right to protest your government, the right to keep and bear arms, the right not to have soldiers quartered in your home. These are not minor issues. These are not fun little concepts that you get to go on social media and talk crap about the orange man in the White House or the bumbling fool that was in there a couple of years ago. That's not what this is. This is literally like foundational to what it means to be an American, is that you can tell your government, piss off, and you can have a small arsenal in your home without the government having the ability to hamstring you on what arms you feel like you should have to protect yourself from government intrusion. Call it what it is. We don't have guns to hunt deer. We don't have guns to defend ourselves against the gangbanger down the street. We have guns in case our government shows up to put us in concentration camps. And I admit that sounds crazy, but historically, that is what just happened to the people who wrote these things down in the U.S. Constitution and the Bill of Rights.
I mean, it's also happened to the Australians since they stripped them of most of their firearms rights.
It's
specifically the indigenous Australians.
It also happened to Native Americans. It also happened to like whole host of ethnic minorities all across the United States over this nation's history. Like, let's be adults and admit that this has happened a time or two. So my issue is, this is not a minor issue. This is not something that is like voting rights or citizenship. Those are important issues, but this I think is more important. And that is why every time we get a tiny, narrow little ruling where SCOTUS leaves just enough of a tail hanging out for some states, some locale to continue to screw with people about the Second Amendment, to continue to screw with people about their gun rights, instead of putting their foot down in everybody's neck and saying, thou shalt not the end. And there is no ruling that will ever be good enough for me until that one. And every argument about building up to, or we'll get there one day, is irrelevant to me, because a right delayed is a right denied, and our rights are have been delayed my entire life, and your entire life, and Stewart's entire life, and the entire lifetime of every person that watches this podcast.
No, that's completely fair.
So one more day, one more year, one more administration, one more whatever, until we finally get to the ruling we think should be, is not good enough. It is still a lifetime spent under a boot we should have never felt from the word go.
No, that's very fair. But this is the difference between the reality of getting into the Supreme Court and a person like yourself, who is a bit of an ideologue in this case. The kind of people that make a career in law are pretty rarely ideologues.
That's bold. Given some of the justices we have in the world today.
Yes. It does occur. It does occur, and they are problematic. But
there's at least 2 of them on the Supreme Court right now.
There are. But what I'm saying is the majority.
Uh-oh. I bet we just lost Nick. Y'all stand by with me just 1 second while I check with my co-host. Did you just lose power? So just for the listeners who were listening and not watching this on stream, when your co-host's video suddenly starts to go dark and then freezes and he stops responding to you, usually that's an indication that he's lost power at his house. Oh, internet dropped out, so he'll be coming back. Okay, so while he's not here to disagree with me. No, Dr. Scary Guy, you can, and Stuart, y'all can both hang around if you want. Nick's just not here to reel me in anymore. So, like, my issue here is, like, I understand what Nick's saying. I get it. The difference between Nick and I is that I am extraordinarily cynical and extraordinarily unmoved by arguments about what could be, what should be, progress, yada, yada, yada. I'm tired of this. I've spent 20 years being the guy in the Second Amendment community that screamed bloody murder about we should be able to buy RPGs out of vending machines because that's what the Second Amendment says. And I am sick to death and tired of being told over and over and over, we need a little victory here. We need to be patient. We need to be good law-abiding citizens because good law-abiding citizens do what the king tells them to. This nation was founded by people who shot at the king's men because they were doing stuff they had no right to do. So all I'm saying is I'm sick and tired of waiting for the Supreme Court to finally say what the Second Amendment has always said, and that be that.
My internet stay dead.
Yeah, well, right before you froze, everything behind you got really dark, and I was like, oh crap, did he just lose power?
I did. My computer stayed on. Everything but my internet stayed on. But hey.
Well, you weren't here to reel me in, so I just like got us both put on another government watch list.
Fair enough, man. Hey, look, what I'm saying is historically speaking, the kinds of people that got into the Supreme Court did not make these broad, elaborate declarations. Not historically. Not really. If you look back at Supreme Court decisions for a long time, it was a lot of milquetoast decisions that were at least acceptable to both sides. And it was a lot of milquetoast justices that were acceptable to both sides. It's not been until like the last, I'm going to say 40 years. Nah, Christ, the 60s is longer than that. We're in 2020. Call it basically since the 1960s that we've started to get these more aggressive justices, some of them on the Supreme Court. And Supreme Court doesn't have that rapid a turnover. So, I mean, look, Ruth Bader Ginsburg was the radical justice of her time when she was elected to the Supreme Court. Look how long we had to deal with that bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
And even she herself admitted that some of her rulings would never hold up long term. Look.
Which I guess you're making your point, but I feel like you're kind of making my point too, though.
I am.
Because my issue here is that you're right.
I'm right to an extent, and you're also right to an extent.
Most of these decisions have been incremental and milquetoast and this, that, and the other. But my issue is the ones that benefit us tend to be the narrow milquetoast ones. And the ones that screw us over tend to be the ones that swing really hard the other direction.
Oh, absolutely. They know where their bread is buttered, man. They know who the CIA has a gun aimed at right now. And I guarantee you it's the Supreme Court justices too. They killed a president at least once that we know of.
I mean, I'm pretty sure they smoked a chief justice, but that's neither here nor there.
There's not insubstantial evidence to suggest that that's possible.
Yeah.
And there's not insubstantial evidence to suggest that the CIA was also behind Manson, the explosion of rap music and the decline of rock and roll music,
flooding the ghettos with crack,
flooding the ghettos with crack.
and
flooding the other
heroin
ghettos
before
with
that.
meth. Yeah. I mean, look, there are plenty of people in our government that are willing to do absolutely atrocious and immoral things to advance their position. We shall see. In my opinion, as limited as my opinion is, I'm no legal expert. I just follow the gun stuff and a few of the other laws because, hey, man, that's what affects my life. A lot of the trade regulations stuff, that's what affects my living pretty much. It seems to me chances are higher that we have a ruling that at the very least opens it up a bit for us in this case. I don't think Cook County already got slapped down for their pistol ban. They're going to get slapped down for their AR-15 ban, in my opinion. I think Connecticut is going to take the same thing. I think they're using this as a backdoor to deal with PICA, because PICA is kind of all of the most terrible gun bans rolled into one. And if they can get Connecticut's, which is very not that dissimilar to PICA, then they can get most of them nationwide.
I live to be proven wrong, bud.
Oh, look, I don't think this is going to solve anything. All it's going to do is delay the Democrats in these states long enough that, hey, we get a liberty year before they pass another one.
Yeah.
Because they will just do what they always do, and they will rewrite it with 3 different words, send it again and say, sue me in 10 years.
Which is when Phil has to be the one to say that until these assholes can be individually held liable without the air cover provided by the government in their office for the bullshit that they're trying to get passed, there will be no change.
No, not real measurable change.
Either that or tarring and feathering in Minecraft.
You know, I don't know that tarring and feathering would solve this issue, because the kind of people that we are dealing with are ideologues of the opposite bent, and they would make themselves out to be a martyr because of it. No, I mean, realistically, I mean, look what happened to FPS Russia. Gun community made him out to be a martyr. Look at what happened to the senator from, what was it, Utah, that got shot a while back. They made her out to be a gun control martyr. I mean, hell, they tried to make Biden out to be a cancer martyr or a dementia martyr after he got out of office. I mean, Jesus Christ. I mean,
after they scream bloody murder for how many years they didn't have dementia? Yeah. Nothing like having your face pissed in and being told it's raining.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Look, I don't know.
All right, we got to get to topic. We're half an hour in. All we've done is goof off, and you've had to, I don't know. I had to reboot my router. I was going to say you probably had to recite the incantation to appease the machine gods, but, you know.
Well, yeah, the incantation of unplug it and plug it back in.
Dave, that is a time-honored IT technique. It works. It's
oh, hell yeah.
It's traditional.
Yeah, if the internet connection had not died coming into the neighborhood, we wouldn't have lost connection. It would have just been a little power blip.
To be expected. All right. So the topic for the day is, how do we take a person from a beginner shooter to a novice? But before we talk about that, I think we have to first agree on what we consider a beginner to be.
Sure.
Because everyone has a different idea of what a beginner is, including beginners.
Yes.
And I kind of want to, like, just your idea, my idea, like what are the boundaries? What's the box that is?
You want to go first?
Beginner. So I tend to think of a beginner as a person who, in order to be at that beginner level, I think you're a person who is like, you've done some basic firearms familiarity. You know which end to point it downrange. You know which end to put it against your shoulder. You know basic firearm safety. May or may not know how to field strip your weapon and clean it and everything. May or may not be zeroed, but you can at least get out to the range and safely handle the firearm.
Okay.
Maybe not using correct techniques. Maybe not hitting the target that often, but you can at least get out there and, like, be safe without shooting yourself or somebody else. I call that beginner level, because I feel like once you get much past off of that X, Now we're progressing towards something more like a novice, which is where I'd like most people to get to at a minimum.
Mhm.
But I feel like it's important to point out like what I consider to be a beginner versus a novice, because I feel like a lot of people probably think they're still a beginner when I say, no, you're probably closer to novice than you realize. Like once you get to the point where you're
very
reliably
quick
making,
gap to jump.
yeah. But at the same time, like what I've seen in the last several years is I've seen lots and lots and lots of content come out that's aimed at the beginner. It's aimed at the brand new gun owner, the person that just bought their first firearm. There were hundreds of thousands of newly minted firearm owners during COVID who were rushing out to gun shops, buying up everything they could, whatever ammo they could get a hold of, any magazines they could lay hands on. And hopefully that ammunition and those guns and those magazines all work together.
We had a funny incident at the gun dealer I go to. He's not a gun shop. He's a kitchen table FFL. I was there at the same time as another guy who's brand new to guns. And he had ordered some ammunition from our gun dealer. He had ordered 38 special.
Okay. Tracking.
His pistol is a Walther PPK.
That's
380 auto.
That's
not 38.
That's not going to work very well.
Special. She don't fit. And Dan was very forgiving about that. Dan's a great guy. I got to try to convince him to come on one of these shows one of these days. He'd be a funny guy to have on.
But yeah, I mean that's the point at which I kind of drop everybody and say, okay, y'all are beginners. Like you've got some stuff, you know how to handle yourself safely. You don't quite know the right way to do anything yet, but you can at least go out to the gun range and like, you know, teacup grip and miss half your shots at 10 yards. But at least they're going into the berm, and at least you're not flagging everybody. Like that's beginner level to me.
How I tend to qualify it is you can go to the range safely by yourself. You can manipulate the weapon by yourself safely. Maybe
Without
not
assistance.
handle all. Right, exactly.
Okay.
Maybe not handle all of the malfunctions. But there are some malfunctions that are more complicated and more difficult to deal with until you've seen them or seen it demonstrated. Where I think you cross into novice from beginner is where you start to take that next step into seeking greater education for yourself. Like my wife, I've considered her a beginner shooter for a long time. She has just started getting into going to shooting classes on her own, motivating herself to do better and looking to improve with purposeful intent. That's when I think you cross out of beginner territory.
Okay. I mean, that sounds fair. It sounds like our appraisal of what's a beginner versus a novice isn't really that far off from each other.
Not really. I think to get, in my opinion, to get to the novice shooter category, or to at least enter the category, you need to be purposefully critiquing yourself, seeking to do better in a structured manner. Because you can go out and, hell, I've got cousins that when they go out to the shooting range, they plink tin cans, and that's all they've ever done. That's probably all they're ever going to do. Shoot golf balls, shoot tin cans, shoot cans full of tannerite, shoot at an old busted down car, whatever. That's
in other words, shooting for leisure more than to improve.
They're really, it'd be no different than them throwing black cats out the window of their truck as they're going down the road. I mean, they're just making noise, really, is what they're doing. Occasionally, stuff moves downrange. That's really where they're at. The difference is when you decide to take that and try to better yourself with intent.
That sounds fair. So let's start off having a discussion about like where I approach this from the perspective of like several people that I've tried to help them improve in their shooting. And the very first thing I'm always like very quick to do, and I prefer to do this in a sterile environment, like no live ammo, away from a range.
Yeah.
This is the way I did it for my daughter when she first learned to shoot. We were here in my office right over here with no ammo anywhere in the room. And like, I showed her the proper way to hold her little 22 caliber, chipmunk.
Perfect.
And, proper way to get her cheek on the stock, proper way to line up the sights. We actually took and duct taped an empty 22 shell to the buttstock so that all she had to do was like touch her cheek to it and she was in the right. Because I was trying to teach her, like, get into a natural, get into something that's comfortable. Don't like crane your neck really crazy forward or anything. But wherever your cheek touched the stock, I want it to be in the same spot on the stock every time. so that you start to build muscle memory as far as this is the way this should feel. So I duct taped an empty case to the stock. So all she had to do was touch to her cheek and she knew she was in the right spot, and everything else, her hands just wherever they reached. But that's always where I start, is like, this is the proper way to hold this firearm. This is the proper way to load it, to unload it, to make it safe, to make it ready to fire. Like, this is the proper way to do all these things. And I saw Raggle mention a minute ago, like administrative stuff. And there is a certain amount of gun handling that's not just shooting. It's how to administratively handle the firearm. To your point, can they go to the range and manage themselves by themselves? If I have to unload the firearm for you, you're not at that point yet.
Correct.
But my goal for my daughter was, when I started teaching her to shoot, was that I can put you on the line and I can tell you, load the gun, unload the gun, put the safety on, you know, I can coach. I may have to talk her through some of these things. She was 7.
Yeah, that's reasonable.
But she knew how to do it. And that was very important to me, to show her, like, from a baseline, this is the right way to do all these things, the right place to put your hands, make sure your muzzle, make sure you do it this way so the muzzle stays downrange, you're not pointing up over the berm. But I think you always have to start from a perspective of, like, proper technique for whatever firearm you're dealing with.
I think the thing you skipped over right there that I really want to hammer home is you cannot critique your own technique.
It's very, very difficult.
You really can't. I mean, once you've done shooting enough, like Phil, when you and I were on the line the other day,
as a beginner, you can't. As a beginner, you can't critique your own shooting. I'll agree with that.
You and I can both tell when we pulled a shot. The second we squeeze that trigger, we know that shot's going out wild.
I literally told you at one point, while you were watching me with the spotting scope, I pulled the trigger. I'm like, I pulled that.
Yep.
And, like, I don't know where it went, but you very obviously, I heard you say, "Oh yeah, you did."
Yeah, you did. It wasn't even on the steel. But yeah, I as soon as I saw the trace in the air, I was like, that's gone. It's not going to be anywhere near where it's supposed to be.
I couldn't see the trace in the air because my head was down back behind the scope, but, like, just I felt it. I felt the trigger pull. I felt the release, and I immediately knew, like, I don't know where that went, but it did not go where I wanted it to.
Yeah, and look, this is why having a friend or having a range officer or whatever, if you go to the range and there's a range officer there and you're the only two there, and you're a beginner shooter, grab him and say, "Hey, if it's okay, can you watch my technique and help me? Can you tell me if you see something I'm doing wrong?" Because it is, especially if you're not 100% sure of how your biomechanics need to be, so that you can manage the recoil of, say, like a semi-automatic pistol well. Semi-automatic pistols, revolvers, any pistols are hard to shoot well. You cannot watch what your arms are doing while you're focused on a sight picture. You can't.
I've been telling people for years, shooting rifles is to me, it's easier to be a pretty decent rifleman than to be a pretty decent pistol shooter.
5 minutes, I can have anybody I've ever taught making headshots at 300 yards. 5 minutes.
You're talking about with a rifle?
Yep.
Okay. I thought you meant with a handgun, and I was like, that's a bold
5 minutes behind an unmagnified rifle. I can have people making headshots at 300 yards. It's not difficult. The rifle does all of the work for you.
Yeah, especially if you have something like a rest or a sandbag or a bipod, like something to help you stabilize.
If you can lean up against a tree, it's more than enough. It's not a complicated thing to do, especially on a static target.
But handgun shooting is just inherently more challenging. The thing I always try to, like, go back to proper technique, the thing I always try to ram home with a new shooter with handguns specifically is like just teaching them that very classic, admittedly, what's kind of more of a modern technique than what was in vogue like 20, 30, 40 years ago, but like very traditional 2 thumbs forward, getting a good wrap around the handgun. Yeah, I've heard one instructor say your goal is to cover as much of the grip with your hands as possible, which makes a lot of sense.
Cover as much of the slide as you can. I mean, I've seen some guys they're so far forward, they're like this with the grip. They're covering 2/3 of the slide with their thumbs.
Yeah, and it makes all the sense in the world when you think about the fact that, like, the thing that we always used to tell each other in the car world is that no matter how good your brakes are, you cannot outbrake your tires.
No.
Because your tire is the only thing connecting your vehicle to the ground. Well, the only thing connecting you to your firearm is your hands.
Yep.
So if you have a teeny little grip that's just holding on to a little bit of it, or you have your hands wrapped around that whole freaking handgun, obviously you're going to have a greater aptitude for mechanical grip by covering as much of the slide, as much, not the slide, but as much of the frame as possible with your hands.
Yeah,
and then for a revolver, I always default back to, like both thumbs behind,
crossed. Yeah.
thumbs crossed behind the, behind
Don't do
the
that
back
with a
strap.
semi-auto.
Don't do that with a semi-auto.
You can
But-
always tell the new semi-auto guy who's been shooting revolvers his whole life.
Yeah.
There's a scar.
But that's always where I start a person with handguns. It's like I teach them, like, this is the proper way to hold this thing. This is the proper way to literally get a good mechanical grip so that you have the best chance of mitigating recoil between shots.
Yep.
And I find that if you build that habit early, a lot of other things start to really fall into place.
And I want to be really clear here. I have tried to instruct my wife on how to shoot pistols well. She learns differently than I do, which makes it very difficult for me to explain what I'm doing, even while I'm showing her what I'm doing. I'm had the good fortune to meet a instructor at our local range day orientation, who was also becoming a new member of the range. And, I grabbed her and I said, "Hey, you're an instructor. My wife's been talking about taking a class. Can I get your card?" This lady, I'm not sure how she explained it to my wife, but it took her shooting up amazingly better. Just in how she explained the different way she explained how to grip the firearm, how to hold on to a pistol correctly. Because the technique she now uses is exactly what I was trying to explain to her. But for whatever reason, the way I was explaining it wasn't landing.
This is why instructing is a skill all by itself.
It is. Oh, it absolutely is. I've had no problem teaching two of my coworkers how to hold a pistol. They're also machinists. I'm wondering if it's not a little bit of how machinists communicate with each other, how guys communicate with each other a little bit differently, how, the bit of the tism.
I was about to say, it sounds maybe like the tism is linking up.
It could be. It could be. I mean, it could be that these guys are used to learning a task in, I will first show you the task. You replicate the task I showed you, and I will correct you as you do it. And they're used to learning in that way, where she's used to learning in a different way, which is why I'm really big on trying multiple instructors.
Yes. There is almost no downside to it.
Instructors, quotations. I'm talking about go shooting with your husband, go shooting with your girlfriends, go shooting with your guy friends from work. Have other people look at it, because maybe they have an explanation for how to do the exact same thing the other people are telling you that just clicks with your brain.
And it might be something as simple as they might notice something that the other person that was trying to show you something didn't notice.
Exactly. Yeah, very much could be.
So handguns is one thing. I'm going to make some generalizations about rifles and shotguns that the audience will have to forgive me for. But I feel as though the proper technique for a rifle or a shotgun is going to depend somewhat on the individual weapon. Like if we're talking about like an AK versus an AR versus an M14 or a Mini 14, or if we're talking about a traditional hunting rifle or a bolt action or a lever action, like there's some generalities as far as like where your hand should be and like cheek to stock and basic things like that. But as far as like proper way to load the firearm, to unload the firearm, to administratively deal with things start to diverge very, very, very quickly, because there's a lot of variety in the rifle and the shotgun world. I dealt with this in shotguns, just in learning how to like load, unload, do slug changeovers and everything on my A300, when I realized that some shotguns, thank Christ not a Beretta, but like if you run the bolt handle twice, you continue to eject shells out.
Well, the Beretta 300 is a smart semi-auto,
but not all of them are.
No, they are not.
And it was heartening to realize that was the way mine was, because I kind of clicked well with the way my brain works. But like, I could totally see where a person that was trying to learn shotguns from someone with a different shotgun system would run into some teething problems, where it's like, well, my shotgun doesn't do that.
So for those that don't know, there are 4 basic types of shotguns. There are dumb semi-autos, which every time you cycle the action, it shucks a shell. There are smart semi-autos, which only activates the feed lip and brings another shell up after the trigger has been pulled. There are dumb semi-autos that work like a dumb pump, and there are smart semi-autos that work like a smart pump, where the only time it activates that lifter to bring up a new shell is if the firing pin has moved, if you've pulled the trigger. That's the big difference. And that makes a big difference in how you handle administrative reloads and ammunition changes.
Which we'll talk about drills later, but this also means things like how to load and unload the firearms suddenly become a little trickier with that semi-automatic smart shotgun, because I can't just sit there and run the bolt handle a bunch of times to dump everything out.
Mm-hmm.
And what's
can't
worse
do the
is,
870, hold the safety switch and just keep racking it.
and even more concerning is if, let's say, I pull that bolt handle twice, it stops spitting shells out. I assume the weapon's unloaded. It's really not. I've still got a whole
hammer on it.
I've still got a whole tube full. Thank God nothing in the chamber after you run the handle the bolt handle twice, but still.
Jim, we shall see if they are selling like hotcakes in Illinois. Like I said, I'm optimistic, but I'm not. It's not a sure thing.
I'm pessimistic, but I'm pessimistic strategically, because either I will be pleasantly surprised or I won't be disappointed.
I'm going to tell you this. If the Supreme Court does not rule on this very obvious case of infringement of a right in a 2A positive direction, we're done, folks. We're done.
Based on y'all's compliance rate in Cook County already, I think everybody's already done.
Yeah, there is that. I think Illinois is still hovering somewhere around 2.5% based on the state's estimation of how many ARs there are. And that's not an accurate estimate. Not even close.
I mean, given how the nation reacted to the pistol brace ban, I just
0.25% compliance, and we knew exactly how many were manufactured.
I'm sorry, not the pistol brace ban, the
bump stocks,
bump stock ban,
even lower.
I think the American people are starting to lose their taste for this nonsense, which is why I'd really love SCOTUS to like finally get with the times, pull their panties out of their butt, and do the right thing for once. I just don't know if I believe it'll happen yet.
That's fair.
But I live to be proven wrong.
I would love for Phil to be proven wrong.
I will subject myself to all sorts of tomfoolery if I am proven wrong. Like, it will go down.
But I think we're in agreement. Learning proper technique requires at least a second person, if not three.
I will agree with you tentatively. I will say that I do believe that like a fair amount of this you can actually like self-rescue, self-teach if you have a good example to base yourself off of.
I tried to do that. And I can tell you this, I am very good at teaching myself skills. I failed horribly at teaching myself to shoot pistols well. The difference that, so I spent about a year and a half shooting a Beretta 92, an ATI Beretta 92, Turkish 92 clone. Okay. Double single action pistol. It's exactly like the Beretta 92. Here you go. Rachel was taught the banana and apple technique for gripping the gun. I have no idea what that means.
I need an explanation, because
next time we get her on, we'll have her explain it.
That almost sounds like something that came out of a sex ed class.
I think if I'm envisioning it correctly, it's hold it like a banana and then wrap your hand around the apple. Is what I'm guessing. And the way I tried to explain it to her was, the way it was explained to me is that you're applying forward and rear pressure with your dominant hand, and you're applying side pressure with your non-dominant hand.
You know what I bet the difference is?
What's that?
Banana and apple is a visual reference.
Could be.
You can't see when someone is saying like, hey, apply pressure this direction and this direction like this. They can't see the pressure.
It's the difference between a visual and a technical explanation. And that's probably why it worked better for her.
That, I mean, it makes sense to me, because I mean, you do get into, there are people that, and Rachel knows this because of her profession, but
Mhm.
like there are different styles of learning, and if her individual style is not auditory or visual,
Right.
then her instructor literally gave her
A perfect analog.
an analogy that she
Yeah.
could immediately apply to what she
And
was doing.
I'm so glad she went to that instructor because I would never have thought to explain it to her in that way because that's not how my brain works. It's just not.
And this is why instructing is its own skill set,
Oh
because
my God. It
a
is.
good instructor can figure out how to teach you anything, even if they themselves are not the best at it, because teaching
Yes.
is the skill. I think
Absolutely.
I
Oh, you
think
did.
I think we might have hit on it.
Good. Good. Hey, you know what? Whatever it takes to explain it, to teach it to people. Look, my brain doesn't work like that. I can teach machinists because a lot of us think remarkably similar. And I think it has something to do with the structured nature of the system. We are actually discussing this at work with the intern the other day. He's like, there's a lot of autistic people in this building. I said, buddy, that's the industry. So if you're not okay with it, you best bail now.
Yeah. Well, before we move on to the next bullet point, proper technique. So I made a comment to you the other day about how I still to this day see a lot of chicken wings at the rifle
Sure.
range and a lot of teacup grips at the
Yeah.
pistol range. And that's a lot of what I wanted to try to hammer on about proper techniques. Because I truly
Yeah.
believe that, like, if you teach someone, and admittedly, some of this has changed over the years, some of this is still changing and modifying itself
Well,
as we go. But I think if you teach someone the proper way to build a firing grip, to build a firing position, to arrange their body biomechanically to work with the firearm and not against it, then you're immediately having a better time dealing with recoil. You have a more stable platform. You're going to get less fatigued over time. It can only improve your shooting. And that all goes towards elevating you from that beginner guy who's like, chicken wings up, shooting the AR and kind of bumbling around the administrative work, to the person who has a good firing grip, elbows down, good good biomechanical platform to allow themselves to stabilize that weapon, and they can start to do real work, fine-tuning little things once you have the basics down.
Absolutely. Look, anything you can do that improves your ability for control passively, because that's really what proper technique does. It improves your ability for control passively because you're using the structure of your body instead of fighting it.
To answer Raggle, no.
Oh, God.
I very rarely see someone like one-handed shooting handguns unless it's something like target shooting, bullseye, like Olympic style, like that. But like no serious defensive work is being done one-handed unless it is one of the things we're going to talk about later, which is to practice one-handed drills.
Yep.
That's fair.
Look, I have seen people shoot at the range, one-handed dueling style shooting. I've seen it. I tend to not stand near those people because they also tend to be the people that don't know how to load or unload their firearm without pointing it at the booth to their left if they're right-handed.
Yeah,
which is why furthest right-hand booth is usually the best place to be in a public range.
This is true. All right, so before we start talking about live fire drills, I did want to detour in here to talk about dry fire. Now,
Absolutely.
in the name of full disclosure, there was a time a long time ago I thought dry fire was the goofiest, most boring bullcrap on the face of the earth, and I never wanted to do it, and I thought it was nonsense. I did not advocate for it, and I certainly didn't participate in it.
Sure.
And then COVID happened, and my local gun range got closed down because it was on state land for quite an extended period of time.
I had a very similar experience in Kentucky with red dots on pistols.
Weren't a proponent, and then you tried it and was like, oh, this isn't as bad as I thought it was.
No. I tried a bunch of red dots on pistols. And I think the issue is down to the prescription of glasses I used to have. It was not correcting well enough for my astigmatism. And so those dots, at one point, you ever been driving down the freeway at night and you get that flare that lights up your entire windscreen?
Oh, yes.
Because the asshole coming at you never turns off their high beams in a lifted F-150 because it's always that guy or a Beamer.
Or you just have astigmatism and you're looking at normal headlights.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to get people to relate that don't have an astigmatism. But every red dot I had ever tried up until we went to Kentucky. And I have prismatic optics on a couple of firearms in my safe. That was the only ones I could use because of the lens flare. So bad. The dot, it wasn't a dot. It wasn't even a starburst. It was the entire
cloud.
lens was a cloud of red.
Mm.
So I'm like, fuck, I don't know. Kind of in the right direction. Pull the trigger. I think that my new prescription that I got a couple of years ago, and I hadn't tried a red dot since. I tried one of Chris's, one of our patrons, on his suppressed 22, which, oh my God, a suppressed 22 with a red dot is just the funnest shit ever.
You want to know what's funny? I was in my late 30s before I realized I had an astigmatism because all the years I had spent looking at bright lights and red dots, I just assumed everybody's eyes work that way.
Right.
And it wasn't until somebody mentioned, like, oh, yeah, you know, you have an astigmatism when a red dot looks like a cloud. I was like, it's not supposed to.
Well, I knew I had an astigmatism. I didn't know what it did. I just knew that's why my eyes were fucked.
So point of order, though, I had 20/10 vision when I was younger.
Oh.
Which, think about this, I had 20/10 vision and astigmatism.
Oh.
So I could read street signs like a block away, but bright lights kind of mess with me.
I did figure as a kid that the lights were just really bright.
But that's kind of my point, is that it never even occurred to me something was wrong with my eyes, because I was like, these are the only eyes I've ever had, and like I figured out how to make them work. So
yeah, my eyes were bad enough I was getting migraines in high school.
Yeah, well, as evidenced by the fact that you're wearing glasses in your 30s and I'm 43, and I can still pass the eye exam, the DMV, without them. So I'm not getting them yet.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah,
I technically can pass the DMV test without them, just barely.
Just barely.
So like I always do.
Not like you memorize the art chart or anything.
Look, let's not discuss who's memorized what. But I can tell you this, I've had my glasses stolen by a river once before. And if it ever happens again, I don't want to get a ticket for driving without them.
Fair. But like I was saying, dry fire. I think dry fire, first of all, I make it a point before I ever go out to the range with a brand new firearm or something that's unfamiliar to me. I spend time dry firing it, so I get familiar with the trigger. I get familiar with loading and unloading. You and I have talked about the fact that I have dummy rounds for every cartridge that any of these firearms fire.
Same.
And that is mostly used to run drills so that I know how to load the firearm, unload the firearm, do all the administrative work, how to clear malfunctions. I make sure I beat all that into my head before I ever go out to the range for the first time, so that when I have live ammunition and a range full of people with live ammunition, I'm not the rude that's out there bumbling around with a gun that doesn't know how to work it.
Right.
So I think dry fire not only can teach you, like, it can not only help reinforce away from the noise, away from the recoil, away from the concussion, it can help reinforce good habits like having a nice stable trigger press. It can help reinforce habits like correct posture, correct grip on the firearm. It can help reinforce the things you really should be learning at this point, which is like administrative and malfunctions, hence clearance. But you can do all those in a sterile environment with no ammo, no risk.
No pressure from other people around you. Either.
Yes.
Because, look, anytime you introduce pressure in a new task you're trying to learn, it makes it harder. It does. I mean, look, if you don't believe me, download one of the free shot timer apps on your phone and see how big your groupings start to get if you've never shot under a timer before.
I just realized I have these things right off camera.
Nice.
So you know what these little things are, right?
I need to buy those.
So this is a Manus X10.
Mm-hmm.
That's a fun little dry fire training aid that we've talked about on the show before. Part of my my push to get myself back out to the range and back to getting my training back on schedule, I actually pulled these things out and charged them recently because that's how long they've been sitting around.
Oh no!
But like for dry fire, something like this is really helpful. It kind of bridges the gap between just doing regular dry fire and actually running drills. It can give you some feedback to help get you pointed in a better direction, especially if you don't have
the second person in the room watching your technique.
Yeah, I would never call it a replacement for a good trainer, because it certainly isn't. But
No,
it certainly beats the hell out of like trying and guessing.
Exactly. You remember those old pie charts that every range had hanging on the wall that were completely fucking bullshit?
My range still has them, but yes.
Yeah, so does mine. And I make fun of it. And sometimes people stick sticky notes on it of, no, this is what you're doing.
It's not the gun, you just suck.
Yeah, it's not the gun, you just suck. Oh, my range does have a "It's not the gun, you just suck" poster on the wall, which is great. I love that.
Excellent.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, if you are the person that wants to spend some money on cool stuff like this, I like Manus's stuff. None of this was given to me. I think this might have been a slight discount, or this was one or the other, but I paid my own money for a fair amount of this stuff.
I do all of my dry fire just with snap caps currently. I would like to get a Mantis system because I'm going to start doing holster work, and my wife is going to be starting to do holster work here coming up. So that will be very helpful.
But that was the thing I was going to say. Mantis is cool. Mantis is fun. Bare minimum, I highly recommend you just go get some snap caps, or you can make your own if you happen to have a reloading press. You literally just take a bullet, smash it into an empty case. I like to fill the primer pockets with a silicon RTV, preferably blue, because then there is no debating at a glance. That is 110% not a live round with blue goo pouring out of the primer pocket.
Raggle, no, the Mantis will not prove that it is the gun. The only thing that will prove it is the gun is you give it to a person that is a good shooter, or you put it in a pistol vise or a rifle vise system.
So I will say that in defense of the Mantis, what this will not prove that the gun is definitely the problem, but this will help you to not add to the problem. Put it that way. Now, I will say that as far as like how well this thing works, I believe it works because I got curious one time and I put the barrel clamp, because this thing comes with like a variety of attachments, one of which is literally just a clamp to go around the end of a barrel. I clamped this onto the very end of my 308 Winchester's barrel. So I was like, as far away from me as possible. I'd get the most range of motion if I goof something up on my side. I was trying not to game the system.
Yeah.
I put this on it, and I put a blank round into the chamber, got myself into a good firing position on the on the bipod, had my fist underneath the rear here of the stock, exactly the shooting stance I get into when I was doing load development for this thing. And I breathed on that trigger. Now, I have it on good authority from the president of this company who was on this podcast years ago, that the best shooters he's ever seen can occasionally hit 100 on this thing. On a bipod, in the prone, I was able to hit like 99.7s, 99.8s. But I can also group 4 rounds together 100 yards. Sorry, Stewart's right. Not blank round, a dummy round.
That's fair.
But the point is that I know, and this is bearing in mind that like normally I'm shooting in like the 80 range, maybe 85s with handguns, with carbines when I'm doing more dynamic drills. So like I can definitely see, and as a point of order, when I first started teaching my daughter how to shoot, I put this on her 22 and had her snap the trigger, I think 20 or 30 times, and watched her score climb from the 40s up into the low 70s.
Yeah.
So like they're great training aids. They can definitely help make dry fire more appealing, more structured. It kind of turns it into a video game, and that by itself has value because it kind of encourages people to like, try harder.
It does. It's any training aid that provides you with feedback, it can help you improve. To further address Raggle's point, I have shot a lot of guns, a lot of handguns. I have shot a lot of other people's handguns. I have gone to the range quite a number of times with beginner, novice, and very, very new shooters. And I have only ever one time seen it be the gun when the gun was not hitting where you were aiming. Only one time, and that was a Taurus revolver.
Mm.
And when I took it home, I said, let me take a look at it. The barrel was bent.
That'll do it.
The barrel was bent. Now, that's not to knock Taurus. I guess it could technically happen with a Smith & Wesson. I've never heard of it. But the barrel was bent. I mean, there was a clear and obvious defect in the firearm. I have heard of, I think it was, I want to say it was a Kimber rear sight being out of location from the factory. But it was so clearly out of location that when the guy pulled it out of the box, he said, oh, weird, that sight's off center. Let me move that back. And then they drifted it back and it was fine. Maybe the set screw didn't get set right. Rough handling in shipping. I don't know. I've only ever seen it in real life once, and I've only ever heard of it a second time. Usually it's not the gun.
So before we get to drills, 2 comments. So Dumpster Fire Real was saying he was watching the Cabin Meat podcast and missed this live.
Oh, no.
7:30 p.m. Central on Thursdays. Unless something weird happens, we will be here streaming. So
unless it's a holiday on Thursday, typically, or we're in the summer meetup.
Yeah, I mean, there are exceptions to the rule, but the rule is the rule for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And Raggle Fraggle asked, out of curiosity, how many shooters have you come across that had a natural talent for shooting?
0.
I will say,
there are people that are naturally better than others.
There are people who are naturally better, and I will go so far as say there are people that take to it a lot faster than others, but I have never met I've never met somebody that was like brand new and just right out of the gate was like, knocking them dead. And I've also never met anyone that shot at a really high level that hadn't spent a stupid amount of time training.
I will say this, the people that take to shooting the fastest are the same exact people that if you brought them into a new workplace, they're also the people that are going to excel the quickest, not because they're talented, because they take instruction well.
Diligent.
And they're diligent.
They take instruction well and they put in the work. My daughter took to shooting very quickly.
Yep.
It was still the product of several range trips and instruction and time spent dry firing. Now, she improved rapidly, but quite frankly, everything she's ever done, she may have inherited a little touch of that from me, but like anything she says I'm interested in this, she goes into it full blast until she gets bored with it, and then she's like, okay, I'm over it now. But as long as she hasn't gotten bored with it, she is full blast all the work all the time, kicking her butt, trying her best, and she improves rapidly. So there is
some
shocked.
level of physical aptitude, though. Like if you have a person with a physical disability that causes tremors, they're probably not going to be a good shooter. It's just going to be harder for them. They're not going to be shooting, bullseyes at 1,000 yards without an extreme amount of practice.
Potentially, but I still think that if a person is willing to like put in the work, they could outshoot. Sure. They could outshoot a beginner without those handicaps if they put in a lot of work.
Oh, no, absolutely. What I'm saying is that there are people that because of their physical abilities or inabilities have either an easier or harder time with it. But it usually comes down to the people that are willing to practice and that are willing to take the instruction.
I'll go with that. Jeff Jag. Stewart tried this same maneuver saying he's here now, start over several times, and we told him no. So the answer is the same for you.
Mostly because it's funny.
Mostly because it's funny. But if we're not going to do it for Grandpa, we're certainly not going to do it for you.
Fair. He doesn't have nearly as much time left as you do.
Yeah, well, he also lives close enough to me to like make a day trip to come straighten me out if he really wanted to.
He definitely could.
Although I'm pretty sure I could placate him with Southern cooking and booze.
Yeah, probably.
All right, drills.
And not the fun electric kind.
No, not the fun electric kind. And I'm gonna go I'm going to say that to me when we have a discussion about drills aimed at beginners. Firing drills are the last ones I recommend.
Yep. Once
I
you
mean,
cross that line into a novice shooter, yeah, you're going to be doing a lot of live fire drills.
yeah. Well, I guess what I mean is like, like your Mozambique and your Bill
Mhm.
drill and your pyramid drills and
Your
your
dot
1, 2, 3s.
any of
Yeah.
those. Yep.
All that stuff, that's great. That teaches you a lot of like problem solving in real time. It teaches you a lot of recoil mitigation, but they are not the drills I advocate for a person to go from beginner to novice.
Mhm.
Because
I agree.
at that point, when the sum total of your ability is I know how to like safely conduct myself at the range and not shoot myself or anybody else in the foot or the face.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the drills I recommend people undertake are really things like administrative drills, reloads, stoppages, malfunction clearing. Like, I want a person to be able to competently handle the firearm when it misbehaves, because firearms are mechanical things and they do misbehave sometimes.
They do.
I want you to know I want you to know what to do if you get a stovepipe. What
Yep.
happens if you get a double feed, a failure to eject, a failure to extract? That can be really exciting if you've never done that before. I
Mhm.
want you to know what happens if your AR suddenly decides it's time for Pornhub time and it tries to shove 3 rounds into the chamber at the same time. By the way, that doesn't end very well.
No, and that's usually a bad magazine.
It's usually a bad magazine. But here's the trick. You and I know how to deal with that problem almost immediately, right?
Well, because we've worn out a couple of magazines.
Yeah. Rack the friggin' bolt to the rear, lock it in place, dump the magazine, give it a good hood shaking, get all those rounds out of there, double check your chamber, double check your feedway, and then pop a new magazine and go back to work.
Mhm.
But for the person who's only ever like magazine in, drop the bolt, bang, 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 and then all of a sudden it does something unfortunate.
Yes.
And let's say I got to run the charging handle. You run the charging handle. Now you got 3 rounds fighting to get into the chamber. You flip this over, look at the charging handle or looking through the ejection port, and you're just looking at a group activity that shouldn't be taking place in there.
The way my shooting instructor that taught me how to shoot carbines well said, when in doubt, rip it out. If there's a malfunction going on and you're not sure what the hell's going on, rip the magazine out, dump it on the floor, start racking the charging handle and see what falls out. Because at the very least, you've taken the mag out of the equation.
Yeah, Raggle says, I've never done a single one. I'm terrible. I wonder what he's referring
He's
to.
never worn out a single mag?
I mean,
he hasn't, shoot more.
I haven't worn out a mag since I was enlisted, but I'm pretty sure those mags were already worn out when I got them.
They were.
But to be
If
fair,
I understand Army regulations, they have to be worn out before the boots get them.
But to be
You've
fair,
never done a single drill, Raggle? Shame on you. We will peer pressure you into doing many drills.
But I question if he's thinking about drill the way I'm talking about drill. I'm talking about something as simple as like, have you ever trained how to mitigate a failure to feed or a failure to eject? And if you haven't,
dry fire out of a holster. It's a drill.
And if you haven't, it's really, really simple to reproduce. Get yourself some friggin' dummy rounds, pop your ejection port open, drop one into the ejection port, and then run the bolt handle real fast. Now you got 2 fighting to get into the chamber, and we now have a party. It's time to do work.
Mm-hmm.
I guess my whole thing is like the drills I recommend are first and foremost from a defensive shooter's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
If the gun goes down, you need to know how to get the gun back up and hot as fast as humanly possible. So I'm going to teach from a defensive standpoint. If your gun misbehaves, this is the first thing you do. And if that doesn't work, then you need to like slow down a little bit, investigate a little closer, maybe try to work through the problem. But your immediate action is always immediate action for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's something they beat into us in the Army is if your AR does, misbehaves, you do this, and this quickly, automatically.
Yep.
And then if that doesn't fix the problem, now you have to turn your brain on and look at things.
Exactly. Yeah. Because look, the vast majority of the time, if your gun goes click instead of bang, usually it's a dead magazine. Your mag is empty and the bolt just didn't hold open for whatever reason. It happens sometimes. Maybe because it's dirty. Maybe because your hand was finger fucking with the slide release. Maybe because you
been guilty of that before.
Didn't go fully into battery or fully to the rear of the recoil cycle.
Have you done that before? Ridden the slide
100%.
stop?
100%. I used to do that on my XDM all the time.
That's when you have a really
insane.
exuberant thumbs forward grip on that handgun.
I did. And you know what I just started doing is
Hmm.
I would just shoot until I got a click, drop the mag, slap a new one in, rack it.
Treat it
Because
like an AK.
it happens so often in training for competitions and in competition shooting that I just dead. All right, dump mag, rack. You know, I obviously tap rack, click a second time, dump the mag, new mag, rack, go. But you know, I have found with a different firearm, this does not happen. With my MMP 2.0 compact, I don't have that issue. Don't know why. It's probably because the slide release is in a slightly different location.
Yeah. And insofar as like, so some of this is not really going to be applicable at like a flat range because like most flat ranges are not going to have the civilians out there practicing holster work and that kind of thing.
Private ranges will.
Private ranges will if you're in that fortunate position. But this is also why I say that some of these things should probably be practiced in dry fire first.
Yeah.
And then you transition to a range if you have that ability. But things like reload drills, Nick, I'll be the first to admit, and the gun community will scream bloody murder, but a lot of times I don't carry a spare magazine.
You know, I think that's not an unreasonable take. I carry a spare magazine because I've had a lot of magazine related issues, mostly because I kind of abuse my magazines. I'll take that shit, rip it out of the gun, throw it on the fucking floor, bounce that shit across the concrete. Magazines are a consumable item.
But the one time I always carry a reload is when I have my J frame. Because
there's only 5 shots.
I got 5 shots in a 15-ounce J frame. If I'm carrying that thing, it's usually on my ankle. And my reload is a Bianchi speed strip downloaded to 4 rounds, which sounds weird to people, but hear me out. So you can only drop 2 rounds at a time out of a speed strip into a J frame. If you never played with a J frame, it's the way the cylinder is configured. Like
they only line up for 2 at a time.
Yeah, only lines up for 2 at a time. And I've spent some not insignificant amount of time like training this, timing myself, and everything else. And what I began to realize was that per rounds in the gun, it was taking me a disproportionate amount of time to get that 5th round into the chamber.
Oh, it's a completely different mechanical rhythm.
Versus just drop one, drop another, drop once, drop the second time, snap the cylinder in. And the best part was that even if that first cylinder happened to be dry, I don't care. There's 4 more right behind it, and they're all hot.
Yep.
But the big thing for me was also that I began to realize that when I took that Bianchi speed strip out of my pocket, I trained myself so that my index finger goes in between the 4 rounds.
Yep.
So I've got 2 here, 2 here, dropping in the cylinder, dump the speed strip, and I'm back hot.
Yep.
And I trained myself to do that only because like a Bianchi speed strip will lay flat in a back pocket.
Sure.
Most of the time, if I'm carrying that J frame, dude, I'm wearing like a suit.
Yeah, that's reasonable. Look, you have to train with the equipment you're actually going to carry. I usually carry a 15 round in the gun with +1 in the chamber and a 15 round on my left side.
Yeah.
I'm a big guy. I can get away with that. It's not uncomfortable. It actually balances out the feel of the belt and the holsters on my body. So it's actually more comfortable with the second magazine on my left side. And that's really why I stuck with carrying it. It was more comfortable.
That makes sense. The other thing I would say, in addition to like carrying, like train the way you're going to carry, is train with what you normally wear. Like if I had this used to have the conversation with Andrew all the time. Apparently, it's like it's like hoodie weather up in Michigan, like 9 months out of the year.
Yeah, at least 2/3 of the year.
Which sounds hilarious to us down here because we wear hoodies like 9 minutes every year. Just deep south kind of thing.
Yeah.
So like down here, my normal thing to train in is usually like long pants and a t-shirt or a fishing shirt because this is what I wear 9 times out of 10. I'm not running around.
Most days I'm running a button down collared shirt tucked in.
Yeah.
So I have more shirt to clear over my away from my gun than if I was wearing an untucked shirt.
And that's kind of the point I'm driving towards, is if your normal way is, I like to tuck in my shirt, then you better train like that so that you know how to get the shirt up, how to clear the gun. You're training consistently. I have to pull my shirt up this far to make sure I'm clear of the gun. and not cheat the system and be like, oh, I'm going to train in a t-shirt, but I'm not going to wear that when I'm out running errands.
The number of shirts I have torn, ripping that shit out from between the holster and my belt is maddening.
I have a not inconsequential number of t-shirts that you'll notice on the right hip at about 2 o'clock have
There's
just
some holster
this
wear.
have this little scattering of holes in them from the belt clip, that little metal belt clip, just the corner just rubbing on the shirt for years.
Yep.
If you know what to look for, it's not hard to spot the guy that carries all the time.
No, especially if you wear like those, like the Huck fishing shirts that I like, you'll notice the right hand side of my shirt is more fuzzy because the M&P grip is functionally sandpaper.
Yeah. And the other thing I would say is, like, you know, we had this discussion not too long ago. We were talking about how, like my CZP09, the holster I have for that gun is a level 2 retention holster. I personally, more power to y'all if y'all disagree, but I personally do not believe in open carrying firearms in many circumstances unless it's in a retention holster.
That's reasonable.
The PO9 for me is never a gun I would try to conceal because I'm not that damn big, and that's a 1911 sized firearm, except it's a double stack 9mm, so it's even thicker.
I was carrying for a while my XDM with a 21 round and a +1 base. That's a beefy gun. That's a lot. That's a 5 1/4 inch slide.
That's a bunch of firearm.
Oh, it was a lot of firearm. That was when I was trying appendix carry. Turns out it's not comfortable for me with a gun of that size.
Yeah, I've never been comfortable with appendix ever, not even for 5 seconds.
I mean, I've got a bit of a gut. You've got a bit of a gut. Look, I don't know. All the guys I see doing appendix carry are far trimmer than me. I'm working on it. I'm not there yet, but strong side 3 o'clock has always been very comfortable.
Yeah,
and very concealable.
Strong side 2 to 3 o'clock, right in front of the midpoint of the belt line, works perfect. But I guess that's kind of the thing that's the thing I always point out to people is however you carry is the way you need to train. I train with that gun out of a level 2 retention holster because if I'm ever wearing it, it's open carry, wide open, with the thigh strap around my thigh. And it's a mid-ride holster, so it's not like a thigh holster, and it's not like, you know, way up on my belt. It's a gun that I would never try to conceal. But for that reason, it's in a retention holster. So when I train with that gun, I train to be able to release the retention, to draw it in such a way that it will actually come out of the freaking holster the first time. It's a very different draw stroke than it is with like my inside the waistband or my outside the waistband with my carry gun. Absolutely. But whatever you're going to, however you're going to use this thing in reality, if it's an IWB under a shirt, train like that.
Yep.
If it's an outside the waistband under a hoodie, train like that. But you need to train the way you're going to carry.
So Brago brings up a good point that I hear from a lot of people that are getting into concealed carry. I hate wearing oversized shirts, so concealed carry is a chore. I don't wear any different size clothing when I concealed carry. The key is you find a holster that is suited to your gun and your body shape. That's the key. For me, it's a crossbreed style holster. You know, one of the big long bastards. Actually, you know what? I have one without a gun in it right here. A crossbreed style holster that spreads out the gun and a very high quality belt. Do not shit about with cheap, crappy belts.
Get a gun belt.
Get a specifically made gun belt, or find your local crazy horse girl and ask who does her saddle work. That crazy old bastard down in his basement will make you the best leather gun belt you will ever buy.
I will say that there is merit to having like an honest to God gun belt. And I personally, like with inside the waistband holsters, I've never felt like I was printing hardly ever. I mean, even wearing like, so last weekend I was mowing a lawn. I was using my outside the waistband holster because IWB, when you're sweating and you're mowing a lawn, is a little uncomfortable. You know what I'm saying? Outside the waistband was a little more comfortable. I had my t-shirt just kind of pulled over it, but it wasn't like an oversized t-shirt. Was I printing? Probably.
Definitely.
But was I printing enough that anybody was going to notice from like 20 or 30 yards away?
Like I'm wearing a shirt that fits me pretty all right. I mean, it's not super tight, But I can wear my athletic undershirts thrown over my gun when I go to Ace Hardware. And if anybody notices, they don't give a shit.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a black athletic tee that's mostly form fitting, except for like the last 3 inches.
Yeah, Stewart saying he used to conceal an old Para 1445. Stewart is also not a big boy, like overweight, but a big man.
He is just a very large gentleman. Like he makes me look small.
Yes. He's a large enough man. He can conceal pretty much whatever he damn well pleases.
He's almost half a foot taller than me.
I mean, that's not exactly a big thing for me because I mean I'm shorter than you are, and I'm
5'11". I'm 6'1". I'm pretty tall.
Yes, Raggle. Yeah. Everything really is bigger in Texas, except
including
me, apparently.
Grandpa. You're not in Texas. You're in Louisiana.
I'm from Texas.
Yeah, but you quit.
I didn't quit. I re-immigrated. I repatriated.
There you go.
I mean, you know, it's the Sabine River Exchange program. It was my turn to come back to this side.
That's fair.
But yeah, as far as like I said, as far as drills, I never get. Once a person has gotten to a novice point and like we're making repeatable hits, we've got all of our admin work down, we're off to a good path. That's when I'd like to start recommending different drills to like really stress test a person till the wheels come off the bus, and then you figure out how to put them back on, and that's how you get better from the novice point forward. But like to get from bare bones beginner to novice, I'm really much more focused on, can you draw from the holster without muzzling yourself? Can you remediate malfunctions? Can you do reloads under pressure? Like, I'm much more concerned about administrative, safe gun handling above and beyond what is I typically encounter from the beginner who is still like working on the basic firearm safety rules. Like, make sure my rounds go into the berm and make sure I don't muzzle my friend and, you know, basic stuff like that. But to get up to the novice point, I want your gun handling to be able to encompass when the gun misbehaves and how to get this thing from a carry position into a firing position. Once you get up to that point of novice where like we have proper shooting technique, proper grip, we're building up a proper biomechanical shooting stance. Once we've done a lot of dry fire to get familiar with the gun, and once we've done a fair amount of administrative drills, I feel like at that point we've built up a novice to a point where not only are you like self-defense capable, if that's your intent, but you're also much beyond just the beginners. You're much beyond the basics. Now you're at a point where you are like a functional shooter.
You know, I have always advocated, you talk about holster drills, that anytime you're teaching somebody to work from a holster, you should always start with no ammunition involved.
I tend to think you start everything without ammunition involved.
Absolutely. But my reasoning for holsters especially is because a lot of the stuff that I've seen online where people are watching guys doing holster drills and stuff like that, not only are they moving out quick, they're moving back in quick. And that is where most of your most dangerous issues start to happen, is when you try to get back to the holster fast. There is no reason to ever go quickly back to a holster.
I think this is part of the misconception that people have when they try to drive from beginner to novice, though, is that I think in that pursuit of going from beginner to novice, and probably from novice to expert, I feel like they find someone that they believe or legitimately does well outshoot them, and they try to emulate that person, which is fair.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. Everybody wants to be Jerry Michalak. I mean,
but I think a lot of people,
that guy's budget.
But I think a lot of people equate speed with proficiency.
True.
That's where these kinds of habits start to get built, as far as like out of the holster fast, into the holster fast. And my point of view is always like, if you cannot do it 100% at a certain speed, you are going too fast.
You know where I think a lot of that came from?
Oh, tell me the internet and gunfluencers.
Westerns. It came from 80s Westerns.
I don't think so, though.
Because what does a quick draw guy do? He shoots you and his gun's already back in the holster by the time you realize you're dead.
Yeah, but a lot of the sins we're talking about now, these were committed by people that I don't think have ever seen 80s westerns because they're
Oh
too
yeah, they have.
young.
We all grew up watching them. We all grew up watching them.
How old are you, Nick?
Every gun guy I know grew up watching, except for maybe you.
I
Most
didn't.
of the gun guys I know grew up watching cowboy westerns at least occasionally. And I
Nah,
think that a lot of the early influencers, now this is before the internet, a lot of the early influencers were the Western cowboy action shooters. Because that was the start of that is the root of like IDPA IPSC stuff.
maybe this is the reason why I look at the gun community the way I do, because I didn't grow up watching westerns. I grew up watching like war movies.
Sure. But okay,
And
that's fair.
reholstering quickly isn't a thing in that.
No, it's not. But okay, so I think the reason why maybe I think about it this way is that all of the people that I've been involved in shooting with, the older class of individuals that were like the founders of the local IPSC club, they got their start in cowboy action sports.
I think Raggle might be on.
Maybe.
Might be.
It could be competition. I mean, cowboy action sports was the early shooting competitions. I mean, there was no 3-gun competition. The 3-gun competition was pistol, lever, wheel gun, lever action, and then pump shotgun in the cowboy action shooting sports world. I mean, that's where a lot of it grew out of. Because I don't know, at least around me, all of the different IDPA IPSC clubs, the 3-gun clubs, all of that are all guys that were shooting cowboy action sports. And then all these great semi-autos came around and they're like, this is cool too. Let's take cowboy action shooting sports setups and just do it with semi-autos. And even a lot of the older shooting clubs, they've got a saloon that you're shooting out of set up there.
What I'm hearing is that this might be like a carryover from like old West.
I think it is
movies that infiltrated into the competition world.
I think it
and
did.
Then became the blueprint for a lot of newer defensive shooters.
I think a lot of it started there, and it's been evolving ever since. But you still see those guys that are like, you don't see it so much with like PewView or a lot of the newer gun influencers, because they're more focused on the actual mechanics of the shooting and the trick shooting, and not so much the I've shot you and my gun's back in the holster kind of shenanigans. Because it's usually multiple target engagement instead of single target engagement.
That was a fun little tangent.
It was.
I guess my point is, though, is like I don't see speed as being anything more than a byproduct of familiarity. So
it absolutely is.
What I'm focused on,
it's a great way to show your errors by trying to push your speed.
Yeah, and I guess that's the point. Is like once you start doing these drills and your proficiency is at or near 100%, now we start introducing speed to make the wheels come off the bus.
Mm-hmm.
But the goal is not speed; speed's the byproduct.
Yes.
But is there anything else that we want to tuck in here before we start rolling this out about like how do we bearing in mind that we set the bar pretty low for a beginner shooter, and I feel like everything we laid forth is really a good blueprint for a person to say these are the things I should be looking at to get to the novice point.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say find a good mentor, but Jesus Christ, if you're a beginner, like how do you even find how do you know what a good mentor is and not the guy that's going to get your head shot off?
You know what you do? You try a couple basic training classes and you find the trainer. Look, it's very easy to see which trainers aren't safe. It is.
Even as a beginner.
Even as a beginner. If you understand the 4 fundamental firearm safety rules. That's a great question. If you understand those safety rules and you watch an instructor teach a class, if you ever see them violate any of those rules, that is the last class you take.
Yep.
You leave. I don't care how much you spend on the class. Fucking leave. If a student violates those safety rules and it is not immediately and suddenly corrected, by the instructor and their staff, their safety staff, you leave and you go
So
get someone else.
Rabalais asks, is competition the next step for a novice? I don't think so.
Not necessarily. I think if you are the kind of person that enjoys a competition, go for it.
I mean, the only thing I've done in recent history was like that Project Appleseed shoot forever ago, and that was honestly more just for the experience and the camaraderie of the guys I was shooting with. Like, competition isn't even a destination for a lot of shooters because their focus is elsewhere.
I think competitive shooting is a lot of fun. I think it's a great way to drive yourself to train, to like motivate yourself to train. If you're the kind of person that's motivated by that. I also think it is a way that new and novice shooters get suckered into paying to win. And I've seen it and seen it and seen it. Most recently at the orientation class I took at this new range, just about everybody at the new member orientation wanted to get into the concealed carry base so they could do holster drills for IDPA, IPSC practice, or for their concealed carry practice. There were 3 of us wearing concealed carry rigs throughout the orientation, and that's what we shot with. There were 2 guys in particular that were wearing the raced out meta rig that you see on all the top level competitors.
Mm-hmm.
The 3 guys that were wearing the concealed carry rigs that were serious about their self-defense were faster out of the holster, were faster to first shot on target, and were faster with follow-up shots because they had put in the reps with their system. They weren't buying the better system. Instead, they were training with what they had, and they could excel because of it. Like maybe that person's like, hey, I've got plenty of money to throw at this hobby. I'm going to buy all the best stuff for the hobby so that I can learn the hobby. They tend to not, in my experience. They tend to not.
Yeah, but that's almost why I see this path diverging where like the Venn diagram where it's like defensive shooter or competition shooter, they're going to overlap.
There's a crossover. There's a crossover.
But
I mean, I'm a defensive. I train primarily for defensive shooting, and I also do a little bit of competition now and then. I'm getting back into it.
And I don't do competition and don't know that I ever have felt the need or the want to go do competition. I would like to do some training classes, but that's for me not to compete against somebody else.
Okay.
Different strokes for different folks.
So here is how I look at competitions. I don't look at the competitive shooting world as me competing with the field of people. I look at it as me going blind into a match, competing against my prior performance at the other match I went blind into. And that's the other people there, they're doing the same thing. Look, I'm probably not going to win when I walk onto a shooting sport field. I'm not Eddie. I'm not Jerry Michalek. I'm not Pewview. I'm just a dude that likes to shoot guns. So I'm competing against my prior performance, my shot on target percentage, like my A-zone hit percentage. I'm looking to up that while not losing par time or my split time on the shots. That's what I'm competing against. I'm competing against myself. The fact that there's other people there and I'm getting to see all the cool guns and watch everybody do their fun thing and we're all having a good time together, that's just a bonus.
That sounds reasonable. All right. Let's punt this one out the door, man. It's been an hour and a half. My wife asked me before we started if this was going to be an hour long, and I grinned and said, I don't think so.
We had at least a half hour of SCOTUS.
Yeah, we did have a half an hour of SCOTUS and a slight intermission for your power blinking, but that's just a thing.
Yeah, we're on the edge of a severe thunderstorm somewhere around here. We're catching Illinois' 200th tornado or so, something like that. I think Illinois is the new tornado alley.
That's unfortunate. But if you decide you want to if you want to immigrate down south, I'd be happy to help you hunt for property.
Not that far south. It's so hot. We have Louisiana weather currently, and I'm not a fan.
I mean, then you have a chance to get used to it. Oh, Raggle
Oh.
Fraggle saying, don't forget the admin work. I did the
For the
admin
third
work
time.
at the very beginning of the show.
I didn't distract him that badly.
No, because I've learned my lesson. I do the admin work at the very beginning before Nick gets engaged.
Just you wait. You're gonna not be vigilant, and I'm gonna get you.
I'm sure. Anyway, this is a Matter of Facts podcast. We're going to go out the door. This has been an hour and 40 minutes of bitching about SCOTUS, followed by how to take a beginner shooter and get him to a novice level.
Mhm.
And if you are a beginner, I hope you'll take some heart in this, that you're not as far away from being novice as you think you are, and the work can be done fairly quickly and easily. You just need to commit yourself to it and look at this as you're not competing against the knuckleheads on Instagram or the knuckleheads on YouTube. You're competing against who you were yesterday as far as shooting. And if you get better than that guy, you're already doing better.
Mhm.
All right. Matter of fact, going out the door. Good night, everybody. Bye. Talk to you later. Stay out of trouble. Yada, yada, yada.
Night.